Welcome, everyone. As you see, I've been improvising on the fly in order to have this be a true hybrid Zoom meeting. It's a real pleasure to be here. It's nice to be back in the Zal Center, where, of course, we've had several very nice meetings over the last several months with the half days, and now, of course, here for regular Sunday practice. That's pretty awesome, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here on another beautiful day. It's nice to drive down from the mountain this morning, head down here to the desert. As I walked in, I met Doug, who's kindly meeting at the front and helping out with the volunteering. He said, let's get you set up with your laptop. And I realized, wait, what laptop? Oh, yes, the laptop that I was supposed to bring and did not. But so then we had to work fast. As Terence said, have you got a phone? Use your phone. And it's like, oh, yeah, okay, we'll set it up with an iPhone. That actually reminds me of the time where during the midst of COVID, where we went to Zoom and we were all trying to figure out Zoom. I'm still trying to figure out Zoom. Sometimes I'm still reminded that I'm muted, after about 1,000 uses of Zoom. And before at Yokoji now we have Starlink, which has been wonderful for us. We have a genuine fast connection. But before that, I would often drive down to Lake Hemet, which is just at the foot of the road from Yokoji. It's like a 10-15 minute drive, and they have a cell phone tower there, and so I would connect for classes, whether to lead or to join, by phone, and often change the background up, because it does, it always looks a little awkward when you have your seatbelt on and you're kind of in the car, so you put a nice forest background up and attend that way. But I'm hearing, apparently, I've received, thankfully, some thumbs up that things are working on our Zoom connection, and so everybody can hear me okay. Okay, maybe I'll get experimental. Thank you. Maybe I'll experiment as I gain confidence, and I can pan the phone around the room so we can see everybody here. And then when we have discussion or question and comment, then we can. I'll have to remember to be able to repeat the question, because perhaps the mic won't pick things up. One way or another, we find a way, and it's very nice. I can assure those who are joining online that we have a well-filled room here of people coming together for ICD to participate. And I can assure those in the room that we also have more than 15 people or so who are joining online. So that's marvelous, between us in person and online, we can continue to foster a connection. I was glad that Ian was first up last week. He's a strong opener, Ian. It's like to have Ian lead last week, and it came back to me. Somebody mentioned that he had concentrated on the topic of sangha. As sangha, Ananda had said something to the Buddha about being sangha as being a large part of the way. And that the Buddha had said that sangha is all of the way, which is it's a good reminder. In Zen we place quite a lot of emphasis on what's called the triple gem, the definition of the entirety of the way in Buddhism as being the three aspects of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. The teaching, the example of the Buddha that still lives now, that strong intention to look deeply into this remarkable mystery of being alive as a human being. That's the seat of Buddha. And when we sit in meditation, just as the Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree those years ago, just how practitioners have practiced and still practice all of these years. It really comes down to one's body collected and in the seat. You know, when we do that, we join hands and minds with all of the practitioners throughout all of the centuries and millennia, not just in Buddhism, but just wherever people have deeply contemplated this curious, miraculous fact of being, you know, which is so often can be taken for granted or obscured with narratives and ideas about this and that. But when we peel back all of the layers of knowing, we can come to a place of freedom with not knowing. That's the seat of meditation. Not knowing, but finding out. Not knowing, but being actively involved in raising the value of this life to its full potential. We do that together with the support of the teachings. You know, at ICD, we've been blessed with, and continue to be blessed with, very capable teachers with a depth of experience and a kind-heartedness that seems to go in that runs through ICD for me as a sangha. Yeah, I've been involved with different sanghas and still am in different ways. Every sangha has its family style, has a certain quality that stands out, and the genuine kindness and inclusivity right from the beginning at ICD has always been welcoming. You know, as I drove down with my partner Yushin, and I say, I never dread coming here. You know, because you can make work out of anything. Even like if you're foolish enough to be in the Dharma business, you know, there are aspects of it that become a job like anything else. And there are certain aspects of Dharma practice where I just have to drag my butt to the office or to the things that I need to take care of. It does, you know, that's still there. But I can sincerely attest to the fact that my involvement with ICD has not carried any burden with it. It's always been an honor and a pleasure to be amongst you. So long may that continue. Long may that continue. Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. And I'll get more, you know, I just launch into some words here and start to talk, but I want to honor our long-standing tradition to begin with our period of meditation. That's whatever aspect of Dharma we may raise up, whatever our particular emphasis, Zen, Vipassana, Theravada, secular mindfulness, whatever our particular leaning, we always have the basis of meditation as our foundation. And if we skipped the talk and just sat, that would be enough. But if we skipped the meditation and relied on words, there'd be something lacking. That's in meditation, our understanding is found in our own lived experience. That doesn't come from somebody else. Friends along the way help us, and we help them in turn. That this really is a practice and a way where we find it for ourselves. In the same way the Buddha, the Buddha did not rely on others. He practiced with people. He had teachers, but ultimately, what he found by himself under a tree 2,500 years ago. That tradition continues now. And so let's whether we're joining online or here in the room, our guidance is the same. I hear a little shuffling as people think, okay, we know what's coming. I made it through the ads and the trailers, and now here comes the main event. Let's find our seat with a strong intention to be here fully. Sit all of the way down. Okay, well, thank you again for choosing, and your various many things that you could plan to do on a Sunday morning. You decided to come to practice together, to our practice together. That's very encouraging. I'm glad that after all of these years of sitting together, that we still maintain and continue that. And as we go through these sometimes bumpy transitions with in person or online, you know, there's things that wrinkles that we iron out. But as I mentioned at the beginning, the key thing is finding or making the time, putting the time aside so that we have a time of meditation. And meditation is much more supportive when it's an activity of a group together. Certainly for myself, I found in the early time of my sitting, if it was myself alone, then it was easy to skip or to find a reason not to do that. I might plan, oh, I'm going to meditate. You have a schedule and a commitment, then you find yourself practicing at times where it is not convenient, and it might not be even what you want to do. But of course, how ironic that is the best time to practice when perhaps it's not front and center. And the consistency of that, to have a time for meditation that we show up to. I was looking at this question recently about what is it to be awake? What is it to be awake? You know, the word Buddha means awakened one. The one who has achieved awakening. In Zen, the Buddha's awakening is synonymous with enlightenment, and the Zen standpoint will really drill in on that point. What is the experience of realization? What is it to be enlightened, enlivened, awake in that way? But if we look at that word, the awakened one, perhaps we could say, well, we could ask the question, if there is awake, then what is it to be asleep? You know, if that's the starting point, if that's what the Buddha began with, it's like, what is it to be asleep? Somebody who is not awake. And of course, I have to look at I can't speak for anyone else. I look into my own experience and ask myself, what is it to be asleep or unawake? And how I would answer that is, if the way that I experience the world consists merely of belief, opinion, narrative, and ideas around it, then I'm looking through a glass darkly. I'm seeing through a filter which can easily really get clogged up. You know, as human beings, we're fond of knowing. In fact, we're very wired towards finding things out and knowing things. It's part of how we're organized as the curious animals, the curious creatures that we seek out knowledge in order to protect ourselves and to acquire the things that we need. You know, and that's a well-honed functional edge for us as human beings. But if we gather into the world of the known all our ideas about the deeper fabric of the deeper implications of life, then we bring our knowing into a territory where it has a limited effect. That's the spiritual life. Like that's the life of Dharma. You know, where if it's all about what we know, then that very knowing can become a block. If we're certain about life, certain about the way the world works, and we're certain about the way it ought to work, how it should be, how people should be, when we start to really to fix that, then we have many examples in our human life of how we can become blinkered and convinced of a view which actually doesn't track reality, and certainly doesn't track reality in a wise and compassionate way. The Dharma practice is involved in those aspects of wisdom and compassion, to see things as they are, and then to be able to respond to the world in an effective way that limits harm and encourages benefit. So we wake up from an unconscious, reactive life and awaken to a more responsive and aligned life, aligned with the world. And we do this in a very practical manner when we sit and meditate. Wherever we are when we sit, that really is the place of awakening. There's no other place. There's no other place that we are, whether we're here at the Mizell Center, whether we're at home, or we're living in an intentional community, or however we may appear in the midst of the world, wherever we are, this is the only place of awakening. This is the only seat. Meditation brings up another curious question. I don't think I've ever answered the question, what is meditation? In fact, with the experience that I have and the years that I've spent inquiring into it, how to define what meditation is perhaps becomes more and more elusive. Maybe I knew more of what meditation was years ago, like I thought I knew. And now, when it comes to the practice of meditation, the practice of sitting, then there's really very little that one can say with certainty about what this experience is. What is meditation? We have a path of method, which we're fortunate to have a lot of information around in different traditions, particularly in Buddhist traditions, not exclusive to Buddhism, but in many traditions, and particularly in Buddhism, there is the teaching of method that comes from the Buddha and comes from other practitioners. And everyone involved since the Buddha, as a teacher is a practitioner first and last, is somebody who practices, and through practicing can share something of what they've found on the way. So to inquire deeply into this sitting practice, meditation, we have the helpful teachings of how to focus the mind single-pointedly, how to use some method to help gather the mind in one place. Right? When we sit, often, even if we sat for many years, we may find that the mind is just involved in a lot of churn about the current events of our life. Maybe what's going on today, what's going on last week, what's going on in the week to come. The mind is often very busy, and I think that's especially true for us now in fall 2024. Maybe I look back into and project an idea of what it was to live a more simple life in a more simple time. But then people of that era too had different and pressing challenges. One of our pressing challenges is the fire hose of opinion and current events, which is pouring in, right? Concern about what's happening, concern about where it is that we're going. All of that is coming in all of the time through these various devices, right? That for good or for ill, we're connected very much more now with a global community, with this broad community. And so naturally, as all of this information comes in, the mind is very involved in these things, because people are motivated to do their best and to take care of things. But if we're immersed completely in discordant content that's flying at us, then naturally we lose something we lose our natural equilibrium. We can lose our natural basis of peace and stability. So meditation is that too. It's coming back to a place where we can rediscover and immerse ourselves in a basic peace of mind. Rediscover a basic fundamental equilibrium. A place where we can sit down and cease doing. Cease doing, organizing the content, and instead receive the world. You know, meditation is a place of receiving. You receive your life as it is, receive the world as it is from this seat. A place to stop doing and start receiving. In the Zen tradition, we have many examples of talking about the heart of Zazen, or the heart of Zen meditation that goes beyond method. We all need some method in order to orient us to the path of sitting and Dharma practice. But there's something that also lies beyond method in our practice. Looking back into long ago into the Tang dynasty in China, in the mountainous regions, we have these Chan masters that certainly inspire me very much to this day in their interactions and what they would say about the heart of meditation. Two of these such masters, Sekito Kisen and a successor, Yakusen. And that's to use their Japanese names. That would be, you know, I have an intention now to start to try and study and to learn how to pronounce these names properly and have it in Chinese, which I've learned is not as simple as trying to read the Chinese off the page. A good friend called me and said, don't do that. That's not how you pronounce that name. You know, the Japanese it's easier. So I'll stick with that for now. Sekito is a teacher of that time, a master of meditation, who is walking in the mountains and checking on some close companions and people who are hermits of the day. Astonishingly, a tradition that still has people practicing it in the mountains of China to this day, all these years later. Sekito comes across his student and kind of successor at this point, Yakusen, and finds him sitting in meditation. He's sitting on the ground in meditation. And Sekito asks him, what are you doing? Has anyone ever asked you that? It's like, what are you doing when you meditate? Like, what are you doing? Like in Dharma practice, or like what do you do when you meditate? And people have all kinds of ideas and projections about that, you know, quite naturally. And we get that a lot at Yokoji. People have a real view of what we're doing and what we should be doing. Somebody recently came up and just said, you should keep bees up here, you know, and it's like, well, yeah, maybe, you know, I mean, it's February is a tough month, but maybe we could keep some bees, but, you know, it sounds like a little bit of work, but would you like to help anyway? Sekito asks Yakusen, what are you doing? And that's a question for each of us as we sit and we come to practice. What are we doing in our meditation? Yakusen answers, I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing anything. Okay, that's an interesting answer. Not doing anything. Usually when asked a question, we like to reply with, an answer that You know, it's like asking somebody, if you ask for somebody's opinion, then usually we've all got an opinion on something. It's quite rare that somebody says, I don't know. Right? That's an unpopular thing in the media. You know, it's like that's a career killer. I don't know. But sometimes it's, you know, it's a very vaunted answer in Zen. I don't know is often a very appropriate answer, is to say don't know. Here, Yeksen says something something a little different. I'm not doing anything with meditation. Sekito says, you know, he could have just nodded at that point and said, oh, okay, and then carried on. But he wants to check him a little further and says, if you're not doing anything, then you're just sitting idly. So you're just sitting idly. That's sometimes a kind of a pejorative or something that's said about meditation. What are you know, navel gazing? You know, you're just sitting there, wool gathering, wasting time. Could be out there working. You know, could be doing something. What are you doing? Just sitting here. Then you're just sitting idly. You know, I've never been, for myself. I don't really enjoy being idle. You know, I've never been much for gazing out of a window for long periods of time. You know, I'm just being idle. But it might be good for me to spend a little more time idle, in idleness. But I prefer to be, for myself, engaged in something. And I like to be involved in what's going on. And I'm interested and I want to learn. And so I like to plug in. Right. But here he says, I'm not doing anything. And so the retort is, then you're just sitting idly. And Yakusan answers to that, if I was sitting idly, that would be doing something. It's a nice rejoinder, right? If I was sitting here kicking my heels, sitting idly by, that would be doing something. Like, you ever have that time, have you ever like consciously rested, right? It's just like, I'm just going to rest, or I'm just going to, you know, there's a time to be, you know, I'm just going to daydream a little while here. I'm just gonna kick back. But Yakusan says, if I was sitting idly, that would be doing something. A nice retort. And so Sakito comes back at him and says, then what is it that you're not doing? To go back to the original question, what are you doing? I'm not doing anything. So what is it that you're not doing? What is the matter of this not doing? And Nyakusen says, even 1,000 Buddhas don't know. It's a beautiful answer. You know, what is it that you're not doing? What is this? Even 1,000 Buddhas don't know. Not just the Buddha, but 1,000 Buddhas don't know. That really brings us to the very heart of meditation or Zazen. What is the meaning? What is this? What is this mysterious life? Yakusan's beginning and end point there is, I don't know, but not a blank, dead, empty, don't know, right? But rather a wonderful blank slate, a wonderful expression of beginner's mind, right? Nothing clouded with knowledge, nothing, no prejudice, nothing boxed off, and nothing held tight, but just that seat of open inquiry, where nothing is known, but the picture is being drawn now. Right? Like, it's like, if you ever seen, I remember from as a child, there was I forget his name, but there was a painter and he would talk and he'd start painting something and he didn't know what it was. He just started to talk and then he'd start painting, and then over time, you'd just be like, oh, wow, it's, you know, the image would become would become clear. Like in our meditation, we're not looking for something certain to be known, but we're in a place of receiving where the world is making itself known to us. I was at a Dharma talk this week where there's a different teachers are in rotation at Yokoji on Zoom, and you hear from different people, and it lands right in the middle of a work day for me. Like one of my most kind of my productive time, which all my productive time is before noon. You know, it's all on a downhill slope for me after that. But yeah, in my defense, I get up about 4:30, so noon's pretty late in the day. You know, so I have this talk in the mid-morning, and it always comes, it feels like at an inconvenient time for me. It's just, yeah, I gotta stop what I'm doing these things, and I gotta go to the Dharma talk. But there was a talk by a teacher who I sat with many years ago, Tenkei Roshi, a Zen teacher, and he's based in the Netherlands. He studied out here with my Zumi Roshi. He's a Dharma brother of my teacher Tenshin Roshi, but he's from the Netherlands, and he returned there and he built a Zen center, and over 20 years, and just very successful. It's quite, there's a lot there to be impressed by with what he's been able to do over this time. And he gave a talk, and I hadn't heard him in years, and it was a refreshing talk. It's always interesting if people talk and they talk about something that you align with, but they use different words to do so. You know, you hear some different words, some different expressions, sharing of the same truths, shared in a different way. And he was talking about what it was to be a person of presence, which is what we practice here. This is what we practice in our community. To be an awake person, to be a present person, to be somebody who is intimate with life, intimate with their sphere of activity and the people that are around us. And he likened this to, you know, you could be somebody who's asleep, but as you wake up, the world notices. And it's almost like the world says, oh, look, one of them's awake. You know, it's like there's one of them, and let's start, and then the world can start speaking to you because now you're listening. And the world notices that, and the world starts to speak to you and opens your heart and helps you understand what it is that you're called to do. And I feel like for that's an interesting way to put it. This is also the mind ground that Yakusen brings out in that wonderful interchange with his teacher. You know, it's not about finding some kernel of knowledge or enlightenment at the heart of things that you can dazzle your friends with and say, this is the meaning. This is the meaning of life. This is how I understand. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. And that can be quite shocking for people as human beings. It feels safer if somebody knows what's going on. It feels like somebody's driving the bus, you know? It's like, right? And for a lot of the systems that we create around spirituality and religion, it's based on somebody knows, right? How about if nobody knows? Nobody at all. And it puts us in the position, it puts us to the front there, that it's like, okay, it's each and everyone's responsibility, that it is truly a horizontal life. It is truly shared amongst all of us to be fully responsible for this life, for how we appear. To wake up to this, not to rely on, again, fixed systems, dogma and you know, tight ways to understand, but rather an inside out understanding. Sitting meditation opens the heart mind. The character in Japanese for heart mind, shin, it doesn't differentiate between mind and heart. You know, in our Western theology and our Western philosophy, you know, we leaned heavily into rationalism and intellectualism and that sense of scientific inquiry and the known. And through so doing, being able to accomplish extraordinary things. But again, when we lean too far into that known, and we move away from not knowing, then we lose something of the heart-centered approach. You know, we become maybe a little too heavy between the ears. We know that for, like, if anyone ever, you know, you come to practice, particularly Zen practice or meditation practice, you realize the constraints of being able to understand it intellectually. Right? We hear talks or read things, and you're like, what? I don't really understand that, but something here understands that. The heart understands. The heart, you know, in Buddhism particularly, it is a heart-knowing practice. The heart aligns with these teachings. And the head needs to find a different way, somewhat. You know, and I say that in the sense of, it's not to disavow ourselves of intellectual inquiry and logical thought, but rather to, how do we integrate that in a healthy and functional way? How do we balance the voice of the heart and the voice of the head in a way in which we can genuinely all prosper? At the very root of things in Buddhism lies that statement of the Buddhas that life is dukkha. There is dissatisfactoriness in the human condition. We are all very aware of that. In all of the years of Dharma, I've never known anyone just say, I disagree with that. My life has always been completely satisfactory in every way, and I know nothing of this dukkha. All humans, no matter what, how privileged in circumstances, or can attest to that there is dissatisfactoriness, there is suffering. And yet, through the Buddha's practice in generations since, and our practice as it lives today, you know, the guiding star there, the guiding light is, through becoming people ever more present, aware, alive and engaged and awake, then that is, we're involved in the active work of letting go of patterns that cause suffering, bringing the light into the dark corners, you know, looking at how things actually are as much as possible in each in our own small way, letting go of those things that cause unnecessary suffering, and finding ways to be responsive and to be of benefit in ways small and large. Sometimes that's just taking out the trash and cleaning the litter box. I use those examples because those are my examples, right? I do that for the most part, right? Sometimes it's a small act, but in our spheres, in the world, you know, whether ultimately in our life, there is no large and small. You know, those are judgment that we weigh that between the ears. But whether it's coming in a more global or a national way, or whether it's just taking care of the dishes that are right in front of us, we're able to meet this life. If we're able to meet it with presence and engagement, then the opportunity for appropriate response can really come forward. Then this world, the world that notices, oh, this one's awake. You know, the world says, I can use this person. You know, presence can use you. You have a body. You know, it can use you to accomplish work, to accomplish things that need to be done. And the beautiful thing at the heart of Dharma practice is what needs to be done is to alleviate suffering in the world in ways small and large. And so for myself, you know, in these years later with, it's changed for me so much what Dharma practice is, what I thought Zen was. You know, a way that is, it's always changing. But I feel that that's healthy. It's healthy because life is impermanent. Everything is always changing. If the practice ever becomes something monolithic and fixed, well, it's time to disrupt and disassemble that and find something new. And so we're here in a new home, myself, in a new way with this, my basic iteration of hybrid. And I apologize to those on Zoom that I was so shoddily prepared with, with a setup, but one way or another, we make it work. And if the intention is there to do so, then we can continue long into the future. So thank you for sitting with me today and for being here. You know, particular thanks to the volunteers, you know, Doug to my side, Randally and Anita, Rule, Terrence. You know, I'll leave somebody out if I continue, but all the board and the volunteers, as we make this step forward to continue our practice together, it's well worth doing so, and I appreciate your help, your care, and your efforts. And there's always room for a little more help, and for you to bring your skills to it too. So I'll pause there. I'm conscious of time too. I wanted to open it up for question from the room and for Zoom for any comments. At least have a goodbye and a wave off, and I look forward to seeing you next time. I think Mary is Mary coming. I think it's Mary next week. I want to say it's Mary next week, and I know I'm coming back in 2 weeks. And I'm going to bring a laptop with me when I come back in 2 weeks. So this will be an elevated experience. And I'm going to see what we could do, maybe a little background. It'd be nice if we could work with a background a little bit. I see what I can do with that. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your patience and flexibility. As I scroll here, it's really good to see you. Thanks so much for joining online. Really good to see you. See you soon.
Okay.